No music, just us. Agut in Moed Aboisai. Lili Nishmasi Mimirosirus Bas Mordechai. Live from the MDY Sukkah. Zekeli Van Veu. Isna Lefana B'mitzvahs. What a beautiful sukkah. Be'emes, a beautiful, beautiful sukkah. Holds everybody comfortably. Of course, a tremendous Yishur Koyach to all those involved. I hope I don't forget any names. First of all, Elia Turjuman, he built a sukkah. Spent many hours there building and designing and buying all the material. Then you have Avrami Cohen and Dave Sharfman and even Coney Margolis. Where is he? Coney Margolis. Shalom Aleichem, Coney. All the chevra over here. Look, there's a lot of work that goes on here. The cables that you don't even see, everything's behind the walls, and the screens that had to be purchased, and a lot of work goes, many hours. I actually have a video, I forgot to show it on Bezer Shem. The editors to remind me. I was
what
here
time
1
is
in
it
the
now?
morning, and I heard noise.
Very late.
What
time is it? 1:10.
1:10 a.m. What are you doing here?
Testing the systems and the sound, and they had to buy this mic, this beautiful mic. I love it. It looks so good. But it's so geschmack to be in a sukkah, and a beautiful sukkah, and we're gonna have Bezer Hashem every single day. Kimat, besides Erev Shabbos, we're gonna have food, and b'samachta b'chagecha, it's a mitzvah to eat and enjoy the sukkah. So enjoy. This stage was donated to us. L'refuas Michal Bat Ilenar Chana. All the food, all the meals. I have to thank all the people that chipped in and bought. Benny, who's very, very instrumental behind the scenes, making sure that the food gets done. Then you have Akiva, of course, who went shopping and keeps on shopping and is in charge of the breakfast and probably the dinners also, and the pizzas. I don't know who's in charge of all these things, but I know I don't want to forget people. Whoever you are, Yishkoyach for participating. Yitzchak Yehuda on the guitars, and Yoni Miller on the drums or whatever they called. So we have very little here today. We have a shir coming up, remember? Shaya is in the house. Our voice is Shaya Kamyansky and Ariel Kamyansky. Shalom Aleichem. Check this out on the screens. Here we go. If you had to take one guess whose sukkah this is, Zachariah the Manulan, no question. All right. So our boys say, a good Moed, don't forget that Chol Moed is actually Yontif, which we have a couple of Ethereum, we're allowed to do certain things, but all in all, it's a continuation of the Yontif, Mikoidish Lekoidish. So here we are, learning Torah in Eretz Yisrael, in the Sukkah, and it's Givaldik. We're holding Daf Beis, Amud Beis, 5 lines from the top. Ariel Minalan. So, sponsors, you're right. I'm like in Yontiv mode here. So the Masechta is sponsored by David Salomon, dedicated in memory of Avi Mori, Reb Shmuel Baruch. He's such a joy kill, Ivy. Reb Shmuel Baruch ben Reb Chaim Tzvi Doiv Zechron Levracha. The Masechta is sponsored Li Nishmas Doidi Shlomo Yehuda Zechron Levracha ben Shmuel Chaim Asher Shokav Elam Kodshim Kol Chayav. I do want to say that many of our very, very good friend, my very, very good friend, Reb Simchas HaChag, he davened for the Amud this morning. He's my favorite chazan of all time. He's everybody's favorite chazan in our shul. And he davened with such heart, and he was crying. Very few people knew why, but on Motzei, we got the word that his father was nifter. He lives right over here, literally right across from the doors. When you come out, you'll see people over there probably. So his father's neshama should have an aliyah. The Masechta is sponsored anonymously. I said already. Anonymous. L'schus refuah Shleimo Nochem Tzvi Ben Yenta. Sponsored by Skybrook Capital in honor of our friends Mayor Kovacs, Taki, and Shamshi Shlavrak for the devotion of Torah study in the Shir. Joel Gedalius, Lina Nishmas, my father Jack Gedalius, Anonymous, Tzachel Bracha Baruchas and Gashmias. MDY Coffee Corner. I had a murderous idea. I got to tell this to the editors. You hear? Why don't we do? We're talking about the sponsors. We should do all the sponsors in 2-speed. You guys have to up it to 2-speed. Nobody has to listen at regular speed.
So no jokes and no.
No. Oh, during the sponsorships? No, that's fine. If you want to joke, then you slow down. That's why you're the editors. Or 3-speed. Actually, I'm not kidding. 3-speed. We'll cut out 2 minutes. Rivka and Dr. Avram Epstein pray for a complete and speedy recovery for Dr. Harold Goldmeyer. Let me try it out. Announce for Shlomo Bedin about Esther. Announce for London Parnos B'Sheva. You know Lashinsky and honor of my father 6 cycle of Daf. You're big on giving to the community is inspiration for all of us. And now is bro die you the Yom Chava. Baruch Tzvi Nisim Ben. Let's do it again because this is not a joke. Baruch Adli Da Yud Yom Ben Chava and Baruch Tzvi Nisim Ben Shoshana Leah. Anonymous. Lashon Tovim Sukkah L'Schus Eliyahu Ben Chayr Dvora and in honor of my Chavrusa Simcha Leah Ben Tzim Glicksman Mazel Tov to Talia on her birthday 12th Tishrei urgent for Shlema Chayos Ariel Ben Sar Rezel. HYK Ventures are for Shlema for Elka Bas Chana. Anonymous. Extra Schusim. Shir and MDY Kids Weekly. Berkovici family and appreciator Meyer Tarlo. Welcome to MDY. Is that how Nachman always corrects me? Meyer Tarlo, just in case. Weekly sponsors, we said. MDY Art, monthly, Refuah Shlema, for Yonatan Edom Ben Bashar Bracha, Refuah Shlema, Mordechai Ben Esther, Refuah Hayeled, Daniel Zev, Ben Ayel Esther. Boys, how's it going? Wow. We're almost full here, and this is on Yontif. Imagine when the Americans show up. This is not good. We have 200 seats in here. What's going on? This is bad. Okay. Rabbi Isai, here we go. So, I finished off the shir. It's mamish, a kiss from Hashem. But a wasted opportunity. Sometimes you have an opportunity, you don't think strong enough, and you waste an opportunity. We had an opportunity, slipped through my fingers. We could have had a bris in MDY, in middle of the daf, talking about Ariel. Because the guy was from the shir, the moil lives down the block, and he said, they all said, of course we would have done it in MDY. Mamish, when you don't think, this is what happens. So, I would have made it. When there's a bris coming, I would have made it. Trust me. Less jokes, less this. Blah, 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 blah. When you need to do it, you do it. You skip a couple lines. You do it. And let's say you're a few minutes late. Here, take a look.
Ariel Minola.
In the middle of the bris, I start giving a...
How do you know that somebody is Ariel cannot perform the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, and if he performs the avodah, awesome. Never had somebody disturb me in the middle of a shir.
Rabbi Korfeld starts talking to me, chutzpah, like in the middle of a shir. So anyways, the Gemara says, Ariel Minolan. I don't think that was ever done before. I learned something very, very important, Rabbi Isai, seriously. Very, very important. I was at the house of Rabbi Margolis, it's Koni's father. He's the famous Rav over here. Of what's the name of his tequila? Shari Tefillah. They built a beautiful shul that I didn't have a schus to go yet. On Erev Yontif, one of the busiest days of the year, Erev Yontif. He has family coming, going. He sponsored a bris, paid for the bris in his house that people should come, go through, make a mess, leave late. You learn chesed of a person, chesed, bemes. Then I heard it's not the first time, and he did Avremi's Shalom Zachar in his house. Not that he sponsored it, but he has a larger house. To do chesed, to think about others. It's unbelievable. Here he is. This is his face. Whoever doesn't know who Reb Margolis is, that's him. I don't think he got a kibbutz even. Like, whatever. He gave the kibbutz and you were there. It's whatever. His son, that's why his son helps at 1 in the morning, because he learned from his father that you help. You do. Says the Gemara. Ariel Minolan. So I got to say some of these stories that I say when I talk about Ariel. There was a group of Bachrim that came to Rav Shteiman, and Rav Shteiman told one of his guys there, he says, run after them, find out if they had a bris milah. So he started schmoozing with them. These guys were from South America or something, whatever, one of these countries. And they found out that one of the Bachrim never had a bris milah. So they said over the story to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, they said, Rav Shteiman has Ruach HaKodesh. He knew he said, that's not Ruach HaKodesh. Anybody could see on a person's face if he has a milah or not. That's like, so, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, he's like, that's small talk. I'm talking about real Ruach HaKodesh. Yeah. That's one thing. Then one of my favorite stories that I have to say all the time, because the first time I heard it, it's a lot of times when I say it over, I choke up also. It's a famous story, but we got to say it. It's a chiyuv. A Russian woman in Russia got a moel to come give her son a bris. The kid was already 2.5 years old. They were trying to hide, and they finally gave him a bris. And right after the bris, she ran over and she grabbed the kid, and she was shaking, and she grabbed him and she kissed him and she fainted. And when she came to, what's going on? And she said, I made a neder that I'm not going to kiss my son until he has a bris milah, to make sure that I make it happen. And this is the first time I ever kissed my son in 2.5 years. Only you're a Russian, you got to have that. And what else? Oh, finally, one last maisa, that there was a guy that was doing kiruv with I think it was like a Russian, and the guy said, I'll entertain you. I'll listen to what you have to say on 2 conditions. You never talk to me about the goya I married, and the fact that I don't have a bris milah. If you could talk about everything else and not that, then fine. So he went to ask Rav Shteiman, is that okay? And Rav Shteiman said, yeah, but you got to learn with him the sugim b'mitzvah of Tagri Lud. Tagri Lud. So they're learning Tagri Lud. This guy verstoppt the cup. He's not getting it. The guy repeats it again and again and again. Next time they come to learn, he says, okay, let's do Tagri Lud again. So they do Tagri Lud, and he understands it. So the guy says, what happened? He says, I got a bris milah. I realized that I need a bris to understand this. And he said, who told you this? Who told you to learn with me this? So he said, there's a person in Bnei Brak. So he went and he said, I want to speak to him. A whole mice over there. Anyways, and then I thought, and I don't know, because I asked him to edit it out of the Hebrew, so I'll say it now, and if it's not so good, we'll edit it out of the English. When I was bar mitzvah, as you know, my father asked me if I could get a pidyon ben again. So I went and got a pidyon ben. No? Yes. He says yes. He said, no, I'm going to say it. The editors will decide. Whatever you decide. What? I was thinking to myself, when I was learning the sugi of Tagri Lloyd, I wasn't getting it so stark. Maybe it's a shame my father didn't send me then, instead of a pidyon ben, to make sure I get another bris milah or something. He's not sure now. Huh? It's a suffix.
Maybe I didn't get the joke.
Zog the Gemara. Omer Rav Chizda, Dover ze mitoras Moshe Rabbeinu le'lemadu. That are oral, that his, you know what, there's people outside of the sukkah, they're listening, what's going on? They don't chap. Okay. How do you know that an oral that performs the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash is avodah possible? Omer Rav Chizda, Dover ze mitoras Moshe Rabbeinu le'lemadu. It's not in the Torah. We have it in Navi, in Yecheskel. It says in the Pasuk, called Benechar Erelev. Erelev is somebody who's a mummer, doesn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ariel Basar is an Ariel that doesn't have a bris milah. Rashi is always l'shitasi that the Ariel Basar means somebody who his brothers died. He's a shaygig, like he can't help it because his brothers already died during a milah, so he's not going to risk it. He doesn't have to risk it. Nevertheless, he can't perform the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. How do you know that this ruins the avodas Beis Hamikdash? It passes it. Okay, so it says that's lechalel, it ruins the avodah. Tana Rabbana. Ben Nechor yochol, ben Nechor mamish. I would think that it means a non-Jew, ben Nechor, like a Nachri. Tamaloymar erelev. No, it's somebody that has a problem with his heart. And came out tamaloymar ben Nechor. So why does it say? Why does it use the lashon of stranger? It means that he's a stranger to the Rebbeinu Shalom. He doesn't believe in Hashem. He's a stranger to Hashem. How do you know that if he doesn't have a bris, he passes that? I need both. Somebody that's a mummer and somebody that has a physical arla. One, because I would say, okay, if he doesn't have a bris, so he himself is mos, he's repulsive. But a person who his body is fine, just his mind is messed up. So I would think that somebody like that could perform the avodah. If he performs the avodah, it doesn't ruin it. Kamashmalon, that it ruins it. And if I talk about just a mummer, it makes a lot of sense. Look, his heart is in the wrong place. He doesn't have the kavana. We know everything's about kavana. Everything's about kavana. Talk to you about kavana in a few minutes, about the kavanas in the sukkah. Think about it for a few minutes until we get there. What are the kavanas that you had last night when you went into the sukkah? What kavana did you have? Huh? Think about it. Did you have kavana that Hashem said to sin in the sukkah? What exactly? You had the right ones? I forgot. We didn't get there yet. So actually, like 3 minutes before Shkia, I said, you know what? Let me just jump on there, and I made a message. I gave a message to the hope. Maybe went to some people. I don't know. I don't know if anybody saw it. I was just saying over Mishnah Berurah. That's it. So we'll get there. Says the Gemara. Utzrichi. We said this already. So it makes a lot of sense that a koifer, a mummer, who doesn't have his heart in the right place, he's not thinking that he's bringing a carbon to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's out. His avodah is possible. But somebody that doesn't have bris milah, he wants to get a bris milah. What should he do? That his two brothers died. His avodah is possible. Brand new sugi Rabbi say. Tomei possible. It says in the Mishnah that somebody who is I need a clock. That's one thing we don't have here. The red clock. What do we got? No, I need to know how long in not a countdown clock. How you doing? It's a lot of people. Wow. Oh, you know what it is? Now I chap. It's not as many as I thought because nobody's sitting the opposite way. It's back to back. 17 minutes? Okay, great. But how am I going to know? You'll tell me once in a while. Every 10 minutes, let me know. Tomei Apostle. Oru Ziknei Darim. So there's a Taisvas on Amud Aleph that tells us who Ziknei Darim are. He doesn't really tell us, but he says that L'chayra Ziknei Darim are Tanaim. And if they're Tanaim, they could argue on a Mishnah, they could argue on other Tanaim, and then he says perhaps they're Amoraim. Okay. Ziknei Darim, the elders of the south. So it goes like this, Rabbi say, first of all, we all know this concept called Tumma Hutra B'tzibur. That's concept number one, and that is that when most of Klal Yisrael, 51% of Klal Yisrael is Tameh, and they can't bring a carbon, let's talk about a carbon Pesach. They are Tameh, they can't bring a carbon Pesach, so the Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash could perform the Avodah and bring the carbon Pesach. There's another Tumah Hudru B'tzibur, and that is, what if most of the kohanim are tamei? Klal Yisrael is good, but the kohanim went to their rabbis levaya, and 51% of them are tamei. That's another type of tumah hutru b'tzibur. Okay, now, when do we say tumah hutru b'tzibur? When Klal Yisrael or the kohanim went to a levaya. What about if they didn't go to levaya? What if they touched the dead mouse? They all touched the dead mouse. 51% of there's a whole magef of mice, and they all touched mice. Dead mice. Then what? So, Ziknei Darim say a fascinating thing. We don't really hold like them. Nevertheless, they say pshat here. When the Mishnah says that somebody who's tamei cannot perform the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, it's not talking about somebody who's tamei through touching a dead person and going to a funeral. That would be okay. That kind of avodah is not a problem. Why? Because there's a concept called tumah hutru b'tzibur. Since if 51% of the Klal Yisrael went to levaya, we let it slide. They could bring the carbon pesach today. So if only one person went to a funeral, the kohen himself went to a funeral, and he messed up and he forgot and he performed the avodah, so we're going to let it slide, because in the family of going to a funeral, we see that a kohen is okay. Why? When Roiv of Klal Yisrael go to a funeral, it's okay. So, b'diavad, if one kohen went to a funeral and he performed the avodah, it's also okay. But if we're talking about a sheretz, there's no such a heter of 51% of Klal Yisrael going to touching a sheretz. So if there's no heter to perform the avodah on a sheretz, so there's no heter if a kohen performs the avodah by mistake after stepping on a dead mouse. If he performs the avodah, we're not going to let it slide, because in the family of sheretz that doesn't exist. Yeah, understood? Simple enough. So says the Gemara, what the Mishnah says, that tamei is possible, a kohen is no good, is talking about a sheretz. If he touched a dead person, which is mamish. In Hebrew, there's a good line, I don't know how to say it in English. Afuch al afuch. The opposite on the opposite. Like it's counterintuitive in English. Oh, that's even better maybe than afuch al. Counterintuitive. If you touch a very severe tumah, like a dead person, then we're going to let it slide. If you touch a little shvach mouse, we're not going to let it slide. Why is a dead person more tamei, more severe than? How do we know it's more severe than a sheretz? But why? Well, what's the logic behind it? So the Gemara tells us what the logic is. Let's see. Because think about it. How long are you tamei when you go to levaya? How long do you remain tamei? 7 days, and you have to do a whole purification system. You have to get sprinkled by the paraduma twice. By sheretz, how long are you tamei by sheretz? That day. That's it. Only that day. I gotta stop here for a second because I'm going to forget later. I'm sorry. I know it's in the middle of a sugya, but we have with us a big covet to have Eitan G, who started a year ago. Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum. He didn't know what Targum was. He said, "What's Targum? What does it mean?" Unkelus. He started calling it Unkelus. He's here. He's being Messiah today. He's being Messiah the entire Chamish Chumshei Torah, Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum. I owe him a helicopter ride. That is true. But the idea is, Rabbi say, if you haven't been doing it lately, even if you did it when you were 13, 14, it's a great time to start. We're starting. We got to start pushing it. I'm done talking about monthlies and zachen like that. We're talking now about Shnayim Mikra Vecha Targum. A lot of people in this room have taken it upon themselves, and it only takes 8 to 10 minutes a day maximum. If you're a slow reader, 10 minutes. If you're a fast reader, it could take 6 minutes. The way I do it, I'll tell you how I do it. Everybody does it different ways. I do the whole parasha from beginning to end on one run. So let's say 120 psukim, one shot. That takes a little bit longer than 8 minutes, probably 10, 15 minutes. But then the next day, I only do one aliyah with the onkelos. Every day, one aliyah with the onkelos. And that takes, 7 minutes. I don't know how long. Even less. Depends. It's not a big deal. It's not a big investment. And it works well with Daf Yomi. The Daf Yomi, the consistency of the Daf. And every day you do one aliyah, and then you come prepared. You know what the parsha is talking about. So, our mission is talking about a kohen who touched a dead mouse, because if he touched a dead person, say Ziknei Darim, you're fine, we're going to let it slide. Since there's a concept of Tumah Hudra B'tzibur, that if a large amount of Klal Yisrael, the majority of Klal Yisrael, they are Tameh, you could bring the carbon. So too, we'll say that a person touched a dead person, if a kohen touched a dead person and he performed the avodah, it's going to be okay. B'di'evet. But what time is it? It's 17 minutes in, but what time is it? Because of the Israelis, I have to think about that. What? Oh, so we have another 30 minutes. Okay. Asked the Gemara, so a kohen who's tamei, by touching a dead sheretz, he should for sure be able to perform the avodah b'di'eved. If he did the avodah, we're going to let it slide. Why? Because Tmei Meis is much worse than you let it slide, so certainly Tmei Sheretz. What's the Kavachomer? Matmei Meis. Shetan Azoj Shlishu Shvi. When a person touches a dead person, the dead person is the Avi Satuma. It's the top level of Tum. Nothing is more Tum than that. So he has to go through this process of 7 days of Tumah. And on the 3rd and the 7th day gets sprinkled. Nevertheless, Miratza, you can bring a carbon tzibur. When the tzibur brings karbanos, if they're all tamei mace, you could bring it. We let it slide. So somebody who's tamei from a sheretz that does not require to get sprinkled on the 3rd and 7th day, and udim sheretz, certainly it should work. Says the Gemara, another chiddush from Ziknei Darim, Kesari Ziknei Darim, Mechaprim Kemiskaprim. You can't make such a kavalchaimer. Why? A mechaper and a miskaper. What's a miskaper? Miskaper is somebody that gets the kapara. Who's that? The person that owns the carbon. He brings the carbon. He's called a miskaper. What's a mechaper? The person performing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, otherwise known as a kohen. So you have to learn the kohanim from the Israelim or the owners of the karbanos. They have to be the same. They're mentioned in the same pasuk. It's a hekesh. You learn one from the other. That what? Just like the person who gets the kapara, he only gets the kapara when he's tamei, if he's tamei through a dead person, not tamei through a sheretz. And we're going to explain why. You hear this? If somebody is tamei from a sheretz, he cannot. You don't have any kind of heter to do a carbon for him. Why? We could go through it now and go through it again. Because there's no need to. There's zero need to. Why? Think about it. How long is a person tamei if he touches a sheretz? Just that day. So let's say he touches a sheretz at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He jumps into the mikvah at 12:01, and he becomes tar what time? At shkia. So let's say he has to bring a carbon pesach, and it's erev pesach. He touched the sheretz by mistake. Shlam mazel. He's careful the whole year. Punkt that day that he has to eat the carbon pesach, he touches the sheretz. What does he do? He gives his carbon to his neighbor. He says, go bring this to the Beis Hamikdash. Meanwhile, he jumps into the mikvah at 12 o'clock. At 12:01, he's already called a Tful Yoim. And at night, when it's time to eat the carbon pesach, he's ready to go. So why should I make a special heter to allow him to eat the carbon when I don't need to make a heter? He could eat it anyway. There is no concept of Tumah Hudra B'tzibur when it comes to the sheretz. But if he touched a dead person, and most of the Klal Yisrael went to Rebbe Ovadia Yosef's levaya, and they all touched the Aron as it was going by, and they're 51% of Klal Yisrael, and now what are they going to do? 51% of Klal Yisrael is going to wait for Pesach Sheni? They can't do that. So we say Tumah Hudra B'tzibur, they could all bring the carbon even though they're on day 1 of their Tumah. So he says, Mamas Kabrin Tmei Meisint, Sheretz Loi, the Bailam, the Yisrael, could only bring a carbon betuma when he's the severe tuma of mace, not Tmei Sheretz Loi, not if he's coming from a Sheretz. Af Mechaprim. So too, that's what we're talking about right now. The Kohen who's performing the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, it only works Mechaprim Tmei Meis in, Tmei Sheretz Loi, it only works when the kohen touched the dead person, then we'll let it slide. We're not going to let it slide if he touches a sheretz. So, if you think about it, somebody who touched a dead person and he's on his 7th day, in other words, that night he's going to be tar, he's exactly on the same level as somebody that touched the sheretz. Yeah. He doesn't need to come on to the special heter of Tumah Tzibur because he's on his final day, and that night anyway, he's going to be eating the carbon Pesach beheter on his own because the sun went down. I'm serious about this. This is great. This is the first time that I feel good about my mic. I'm not hearing echoes. What's going on, everyone? Why am I not hearing an echo this time? There's a speaker next to me? Hidden? Set it up right. You got the motzah. This Rabbi said this. You got the motzasa. This is like 3 days in the works. I'm not kidding. Like they were here for 3 days straight, working and working. It's mamish geschmack. Thank you. You don't understand. Like when you hear it what's the word? Reverberate. What? Reverb. It's terrible. It's so. Okay. Baruch Hashem. Also, the other thing is like when I was coming here, there's a guy who has a concert, but like 3 blocks away. It's on the other side of the park. And it's so loud. And it's like, how am I going to give shir? I don't hear anything. Anybody hears it? Mayam Lois. And it's booming. When I was walking down the street, like I heard it as if I'm in the room. You probably don't. When you're next to it, it could be it's even lower. I'm serious. Just the fact that it's unbelievable. But here, we don't hear a thing. Baruch Hashem. Weiter. Says Gemara. Michael Sarvi. So this is we already discussed this, so this is simple for us. What do they hold? If somebody touched a dead rat, there's 2 ways to look at it. You cannot shecht a carbon pesach for him. Why? Because right now he's tummy sheretz. We don't hold that. I already explained that we hold that you could shecht. I'll prove to you that they don't hold that. Why? Because then if most of Klal Yisrael touched this dead rat, then why can the Kohanim perform the Avodah for them? Because if a single person you cannot check the carbon pesach for him right now, tzibur avde betuma. Then if 51% of the Klal Yisrael is tummy from that tuma, we would do it. How come we don't do it? It must be that we hold that tumas sheretz is different than tumas adam. Tumas sheretz is because anyway the sun is going to go down. You're going to be tar on your own. There's no need for me to make a heter for the kohen to perform the avodah for you. Why? Because I'm going to perform the avodah right now. I'm going to shecht your carbon pesach, even though you're very, very tamei. But since anyway you're going to be tar tonight when you're able to eat it, then it's a good. We're going to see on Amud Aleph. There's a big problem. Whoa. It's Benny's son. So maybe we gotta let it slide. Sure enough. Lava. Okay. Wow. I have to breathe now. That was even worse than going behind me in the middle of the chair. You know what I'm saying? This like. So anyway, בסדר. מה נשמע? בוא שנייה. בוא. I don't know if you. I wrote this down. Word for word here. It's in my notes. I'm not kidding. הנה, אתה רוצה לקרוא את זה? סיפרו לך. Here's my note. In my front of my Gemara, this guy comes over to me. I'm not making this up. He comes over and he says, אני גאה בך. Those are his words. I'm very proud of you because you utilize your time wisely. When you have downtime, you open your Gemara and learn. This guy, אני גאה בך. תודה רבה. אתה תגדל להיות כמו אבא שלך ואפילו יותר גדול ממנו, בסדר? ואז הוא יהיה גאה בך. הוא כבר גאה בך. טוב, תודה רבה. It's crazy. Some kids have it, no? Like natural. How old is he? He's 10. אני גאה בך. It's probably a lashon that his father told him, no? אני גאה בך. אתה אומר לו את זה? למה לא? איך? לא, אבל... מה זה? קלאק, ישכוח. Oh, we have a half hour. Okay, where are we? We're still not on today's daf. You have what I'm saying? Okay. By the way, just heads up, tomorrow's daf and tonight, the one I'm giving now, is super, super easy. Just it flies. So it doesn't matter where we get to. We're going to probably get to where we need to be just on tomorrow's daf. So let's go. Tomorrow, don't forget, what's his name? Novak. Benzi Novak and family are sponsoring the breakfast. They make the food themselves. They're going to be here preparing and everything. They mamish, they do chesed b'yadayim, givaldik. Okay, so we said this, right? We learned this. Says Ula, what an interesting lashon. He did a tkiya shofar. He objected. He was upset about this ziknei daraim. I don't understand something. What has more power to push off tumah? The Yisrael that's bringing his carbon, whoever it is bringing his carbon, or the kohanim? The owner of the carbon has more power than a kohen. Why? Because an individual could bring his carbon even though he's tamei. When he has tamei sheretz, he just sends his carbon with the kohen, with his friend to the Beis Hamikdash, and we shecht it. Whereas the kohen, when he himself is tamei, cannot do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. So you see that the person who is receiving the kapara has more power than the person giving the kapara. And therefore what? Listen to this Kal V'chomer. The Gemara explains it word for word what I just said. When the owner, he became a tamei, he touched a rat, he's allowed to send his carbon. Yet a kohen who became tamei with the sheretz cannot perform the avodah. So, but in a place where the person receiving the kapara touched the dead person, there's no way you send your carbon. So let's say you have a carbon of Pesach carbon Pesach, and you cannot bring your carbon to the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Because Nebuch, you went to a funeral. So what do? Rabbi said, what do? It's a trick question. Everybody knows the answer, yet nobody could think of the answer. What do? You Pesach Sheni. You bring the carbon in the second Pesach. Right now, you can't bring it. So certainly, if the one receiving the kapara can't bring his carbon to the Beis Hamikdash when he touches a dead person, certainly the kohen shouldn't be able to perform the avodah. Yet Ziknei Darim say that a kohen who's tamei meis could perform the avodah. Remember why? Because if you could perform the avodah b'tzibur, so we're going to let it slide b'yachid also. It doesn't make sense, he says. Says the Gemara, not true. A person who went to a funeral could send his animal to the Beis Hamikdash, and it'll be yoytze b'di'evid. No, b'di'evid. If he didn't tell people about it, or if he didn't know about it, and he didn't know that he's tamei, and he didn't realize that he touched the thing, and then he found out later, we'll let it go, and we're not going to make him do it again. So there's an interesting Rashi over here that has a lot to do with us. Yeah, this is the one. Tmei meis nami. Yochid tamei meis nami shelach korbanosiv kloimim shilach pischol azaro shchotu zorko potum lasis pesach sheni. Vav bishli yoichol mimenu dekasari achilas pesachim leimak keves. Oh, so this is negiyah to us. It was negiyah to us yesterday, a little bit more, but it's important now to talk about it. There's a famous Gzeir Shava, Shalom Aleichem. Odla. They're coming. There's a famous Gzeir Shava, Tesvav, that we learn from Pesach to Sukkot. And therefore, just like there's a chiyuv to eat a kazayis matzah on the Leila Seder, there's a chiyuv to eat a kazayis bread in the sukkah the first night. So I, for instance, I don't like to eat bread because it makes me very sick, but I sometimes can't control myself. On Sukkot night, because of that chiyuv, I do it. So I just wanted to tell the Olam, I guess you could still be mechaven this. It's important. Because if you ask people, what are you supposed to be mechaven when you go into the sukkah, they'll most likely tell you, mechaven, the Hashem said this in the sukkah. But that's only b'di'evid. The Mishabura brings that l'chatchila, you're supposed to think two things. You're supposed to think, Zecher la'anani kavod, and also that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim. Those two things we actually say, Zecher l'tzias Mitzrayim and Kiddush, but if you think about it, just for 2 seconds, then you get to the mitzvah l'chatchila. So now, sitting in the sukkah, you give him chav and think. You're sitting in the sukkah, Zecher la'anani hakavod, and Yitzias Mitzrayim. Oh, and then I'll tell you this murdic thing, because I said it in the Hebrew, and I saw a couple of people that had some tears in their eyes. We have a mitzvah of Samachta b'chagecha. All Yom Tovim, especially Sukkot, because it says the word Simcha twice. So the question is, why is this Man Simcha Seinu? Because it's Chag Asif. That's when the farmers, they gather their wheat. The problem is, the question, what about the year that you have a terrible crop? You get 10% of what you usually get. Why is this Man Simcha Seinu? And it hit me like a ton of bricks just 2-3 days ago in the English year. I said a sponsorship, and it says, Li'ili Nishmas my Kala. And I didn't see it before, and I was shocked, like it hit me, and I choked up, and I couldn't continue, like, it was hard for me, like, for the next 5 minutes, I kept on thinking about this poor guy. His Kala died. Like, and then, some guy writes to me, Aaron Hirsch from Lakewood. He says, let me tell you the story. And it made it even worse. Baruch Hashem, I didn't know the story then. The guy is 50 years old, never engaged in his life. He finally gets engaged. And during the engagement, she's nifter. I don't know the story. That's the information he gave me. He left me hanging. That's Yantav by him. Shkoyach. Thanks, Aaron. My point is, and then another story. Stam l'saber soizen. We all have kids, and we have struggles with our children, and this one does this, and this one does that. So there's a guy that a cipher, he worked really hard on a mezuzah. His kid comes flying by, 2-3 years old, hits the table, coffee all over, done. And this guy's mad, 2 hours into the toilet. And there's a hush of a person there that saw him upset, and he said, do you know, I have a friend that will pay $10,000 right now to see his 3-year-old in a wheelchair get up and knock a coffee over on the mezuzah. So it's all the perspective. You're upset that your wife is like this and like that. Halavai, she should have been like that and like this. And this guy, when he's 50 years old, the first time he's engaged, his future wife dies. It's all how you look at it. And means, if you come from a perspective like, oh, I deserve $1 million. I deserve 20 truckloads of wheat, because that's what I had last year. But if you realize you don't deserve anything, and everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us is a gift, gives us eyesight, it's a gift. Everything is a gift, and you only realize it when you start not having it. That's the Samachta b'Chagech. So we're here, opportunity to be Makar Toiva. We walked here on our own 2 feet. We got here. We could hear. We could see. We're breathing. We have mishpachas. We have parnasa. Okay, so it was a little better last year, and this and that. Everybody with their own thing. Everybody with their own struggle. But think about the large picture. Zog the Gemara. Ay ve so machta ay ve chagecha ay ve oi so achsom mevei ay. All right, we gotta go. All right, Zog the Gemara. Sorry, let's go back. Ziknei Darim hold that a person who's Tmei Meis could send his carbon to the Beis HaMikdash. But it says, unfortunately, in the Pasuk, Ish Ish Ki Tomei V'Osa Pesach B'Chodesh HaSheni. There's a Pesach Sheni for that purpose. L'mitzvah. That's the best way to do it. Ish Lefi Achloi. Oh, it says in the Pasuk that you could only be part of this carbon if you're going to eat from it. Remember, we all remember, what do we remember? That famous thing that the old man with his teeth, if you can't check the carbon paste for somebody that doesn't have teeth even. So if you're a Tmei Meis, like we're talking about it right here. He's Tmei Mace and he sends his carbon into the Beis Hamikdash. How? He's like a guy that doesn't have teeth. He can't eat it right now. He can't eat. If your tummy can't eat it, so how could he shecht it for you? Says Gemara law, lemitzvah. Yeah, that's only lemitzvah. They hold it's a mitzvah. If you want to do it the best, you should be able to eat. But if you can't eat, you're also yaitza. As Gemara law, kuvilai, what are you telling me that it doesn't passel the carbon? But Tanya b'michsas nefashos. Melamin sheina pesach nishchat lemenuyav. Oh, there's a concept in Masechtas Pesachim, learned very extensively about it, that in order to eat from a carbon pesach, you have to be on a list. You go around, I'm not going to be able to eat the whole thing, you're not going to be able to, so let's partner up. I'll take it this part, you'll take that part. And if you're not a manui, if you're not on the list, no good. Here, we have a little video, check it out. Here.
המצות האלה קשות כמו דיקט עץ.
Hard like a piece of wood.
כל דכפין יעשה ויאכל.
רבי, מה אתה עושה? אתה לא רשום.
זה לא בשבילך.
לא, זה רק למנויים.
He's dreaming about this meat, and he can't control it anymore. He reaches out to it, and they say, no, you have to be a manui. You have to be. You can't just eat the meat. What do you think this is? It's a joke. You have to be a manui. So says the Gemara, and what if you shecht it? You shecht the carbon pesach for somebody that's not on the list. You'll think, okay, yes, we didn't do it. It's a chumrah. We're going to see it in Kachim a lot. When the Torah repeats itself twice, it means this is for real. This is not a joke. It says it twice. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, here we go. B'michsas, tachaisu. 2 words that are the same meaning to teach us. If you're not on the list, do not eat. So just like you only shecht for somebody who's on the list, so too somebody that could eat it. And if you cannot eat, why can't you eat? Because you're tmei meis, then you cannot shecht for him. Just like you can't shecht for somebody that's not on the list, so you cannot shecht for somebody who can't eat. Zikni dorim loy makshi. It's not a question. They don't have this hekesh between a manui and a oichel. So, if you can't eat, and I shecht for you, not the end of the world. Says Gemara, even if they don't hold this hekesh, but I have another pircha. Why? Ken tzadikim lamot shama, lo liyadi. זה מפריע לעיניים. ומה במקום שניתנו בעלים בשרץ, שמשחררים גם מסיים לכתחילה. When a person becomes tamei, he himself, the owner of the carbon, became tamei from a sheretz. The halach is what shemshachim g'nei lechatchila. So we're doing the same exact kavachayim that we said before, so you all know it. We're just adding one word, lechatchila. I could send my carbon in the first place without any worries, even though I'm tamei sheretz. Why? Because tonight I'm going to be completely tar and I can eat it lechatchila. Koyim shinit sheretz. Yet the same tumah. When a kohen is tamei from a sheretz, he cannot perform the avodah. So magim shenim b'aylam b'meis. When the b'aylam touched that person, they went to levaya. Shem shachim g'nesem lechatchila. They cannot. Before we answered, you could. The Ziknei Dorim hold that if he sent the carbon after the fact, it's okay. No. I'm now sticking in the word lechatchila. They cannot send it in the first place. Certainly, how do you Ziknei Dorim say that a kohen who performs the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash when he went to a funeral, it's okay, we're going to let it slide? No way. Simple logic tells you that it shouldn't be like that. Okay, so end of that. Meisvei. And now we have a question on Ziknei Dorim. What does Ziknei Dorim say? That if a kohen who's tamei, by going to a funeral, he performs the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash by mistake, we're going to let it slide? We have a question. Hatzitz miratz al tumas dam. We don't have to understand everything here. We have to understand the next part. We're talking about a nazir. We're talking about a carbon pesach. A nazir is a person who says, I'm going to refrain from drinking wine and grapes. And at the end of the 30 days, or however long he took it upon himself, he has to bring karbanos, and there's a whole process. Karban Pesach, we know what that is. Tzitz, this is the tzitz. The Kohen Gadol wears it. Oh, I should have shown that picture. Geschmack a picture from Eliyahu Shalom. I have to get Rishus though. The tzitz, the reason why the Kohen Gadol wears this is to give a kapara for all the problems that they had in the Beis Hamikdash from Tumah. Tumah's dam, the Tumah of the blood. Ve'enatzitz miratzo al tumas haguf. But we're talking about, says the Gemara, we're talking about the owner here. And it won't give him, by the way, is the Beis Medrash open so people go to the bathroom over there? Okay, so if anybody has to use the restroom, the bathrooms are open over there. It won't give, it doesn't help if somebody's tomei in his body. B'mai, what kind of tumah are we talking about? If we're talking about just they touched a rat. We said that not only that, you could lechatchila go and check for him. We're talking about somebody who went to Levaya. Vikatani, and it's miratzo. And we said that the tzitz doesn't help. Alma nitmu ba'alim b'meis, ei mishachim garin. Here's a question on Ziknei Darim over here. It seems like you cannot send your carbon and you have to wait for Pesach Sheni. Loi. Says, well, no. Itmu ba'alim b'meis ochanami. If we're not talking about that, because if the owner became Tomei Meis, you're right, the tzitz is miratza. That's like in our Mishnah, that the kohen who performs the avodah after you touch the sheretz, according to Ziknei Darim, apostle. Actually, everybody holds that. If the kohen touches the sheretz, the avodah is apostle. But wait a minute, it doesn't really jive with the seifa. So here's a very cool halacha. A lot of us didn't know about this halacha until tonight, so it's geschmack. There's something called tumas hatohaim. Did anybody hear of tumas hatohaim? No? Great. So we're learning a big chiddush. Tumas hatohaim means a tumah that nobody was aware of before. Okay? There's a dead person that an avalanche covered him once upon a time, and people, oh, here, we have a video. Vada. Here we go. It's a little gory, actually. It's not the way you snowboard. And the guy that did it is Israeli, and that's not how you jump off a thing, but okay. The 180 is not bad. I mean, I think that avalanche just covered him. Something happened over there. Oh. Now it covered him. Baruch Dynamis. Here comes Lit. You guys remember Lit? This is the first time. Oh, he jumped before the jump. That's a nerve-ending thing. Wow. Don't let an Israeli do your snowboarding videos. So now it became red. Why? Because he just went over a dead person. But here's the thing. Since that dead person is unknown, nobody ever knew that he's buried there. Only later on. Years later, when the snow melted, they found the body there. So Mela, everything that people did there before, it's an unknown tumah, so we let it go. All their karbanas, the karban pesach, everything, we let it go. So, let's see what it says over here. Could it make sense that we're talking about the kohen? Before we thought we were talking about the owner. And now we're talking about the kohen that's performing the avodah. Wait a minute, how's it go with the tahim? The tzitz lets it go by. It's only when a dead person is buried under the avalanche. To come to exclude what? What if a dead rat is buried under there? No. It doesn't come to be miratza that. Says Gemara, no. We're talking about that, so real quickly, because the Israelis are coming, but we have to talk about ziva for a second. Ziva is when something comes out of his body, and if it only comes out once, it's like he's a balkari. It's like it's a disease that made this happen. If it comes out twice, he becomes a real zav, a zav gadol. 3 times, he becomes a zav gadol, but he has to bring a karba. And he has to wait 7 days. 7 days of tara. Now, 3 times or 2 times means once, and then there's a break, and then another time, or on 2 different days. So what happens if a person has a ziva from before Shkia a very, very long emission, a very long ziva, and it goes all the way after Shkia. Is that considered 2 days or 1 day? The answer is it's considered 2 days because it's a long ziva. But what if a guy had a ziva during Ben Hashmashas for 20 seconds during Ben Hashmashas, and now you don't know if it belongs to the Sunday or the day afterwards, Monday? So that's a suffix, and that's Tumas HaTahim of ziva. So we're not coming to exclude a sheres, we're coming to exclude the Tumas HaTahim of a ziva. A kohen who's performing the avodah on a nazir and a korban pesach. He had a question, he didn't know how to answer it. Does the Tumas HaTahim work here or not? Do you say it's okay or not okay? Based on what you're telling me, we're talking about the kohen performing the avodah. You see from here that Tumas HaTahim works. So the Gemara says you're right. The Rami Bar Chama Vadi Plig, of course, Ziknei Darim are going to argue on Rami Bar Chama because he holds that this is talking about the owner, not the kohen. But they hold it's talking about a kohen, so they argue with each other. Fine. Toshma. We have a kasha now on Rami Bar Chama. What does Rami Bar Chama say? That a korban pesach, when the owner is tamei meis, is possible. So he says, V'nasa Ariel. These guys are talking behind me. It says that the tzitz is meratza. How? What exactly does it come to forgive? Daf Yomi Amud Beis. Im avoin pigul hari nemar. So this is a tricky thing. I once said it in shir. Because we're going to say it all the time. What does pigul mean? We know pigul to mean when the kohen thinks that he's going to eat the korban, he's going to perform the zrika outside of its allotted time. But in the Torah, that's not what it means. In the Torah, it means outside of the allotted place. So that's what it means over here. Which means chutzlam koyimai. Harek v'nemar, the Torah already says lo yichashav. Lo yichashav. You're not going to get a kapara. Im avoy noisar. And over here, I made a mistake in the Hebrew. I did not prepare well on Friday because of the whole Sandekais and Friday. Not a good excuse, but I mamish didn't prepare well. Noisar over here does not mean noisar leaving it over. Noisar over here means the same thing that we always call pigul, which is thinking about chutz le zmanoi. That's what noisar over here means. Chutz le zmanoi. Here, this is because of my bad mistake. Yoshi did this. I'll just show it because it's not applicable to. This is like noisar.
Go away. Let me sleep.
That's noisar, like a regular noisar. But over here we're talking about chutz zmanoi. Okay? Fine. Mistake. Next. Huh? It becomes noisar. Yeah. Whatever. Oh, so what does it come? 1 minute before sponsors. The tzitz comes to give a kapara for tuma, not for noisar, not for pigul, not for chutz zmanoi, but for tuma. And why? Because it's hutra meklal b'tzibur. Once in a while, we allow it to slide when the tzibur is tamei. So that's why we're makel on it through the tzitz. Turning to the daf, sponsored by DAG Global Specialists in International Financial Services Anonymous. Has this Anonymous and the schos and support of Torah that all tests should come back 100% healthy for me and my family. So the Gemara. Oh, sorry. My tumah. What kind of tumah we're talking about? Elema tumah sheretz. Mituma sheretz we're talking about the dead rat. History. So what does it mean history? Like we explained on Amud Aleph. There is no way in the world that you ever need a kohen to perform the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash when somebody touched the dead rat. Why? Because you just wait till that night and you become tar anyway. Elatum meis. Obviously we're talking about a dead person. We're talking about the owner, not the kohen. So over here you see that you could send the korban even though you went to Levaya and you're Tameh. Ubemai, and what are we talking about? Ibn Nazir. Huh? Not Lechatchila. Yeah, it's not Lechatchila. Yeah, that it works with the Yevet. All these things are with the Yevet, basically. Ubemai, what are we talking about? Ibn Nazir, it certainly doesn't work with a Nazir. Why? You have to start all over. Everybody knows a Nazir who becomes Tameh. What's the halacha? Start all over. Eloi Pesach. You're talking about a guy that has a Pesach, and he sent his korban, like Ari asked before, how, and the Gemara answers. He did it, b'di'evet. So, it's not like Rami Bar Chama. Says the Gemara, Loilam b'sheretz. No, we're talking about a sheretz. V'shem tuma b'olam. You ask me, but a sheretz is no heter. What do you mean? The Brisa says that tuma hutru b'tzibur. And tuma hutru b'tzibur doesn't apply to sheretz. You're 100% right. It doesn't apply to sheretz. But the concept applies in the world. There is a concept called tuma hutru b'tzibur. Where? By a dead person. The Seder. So we threw it in there. Vika de daiko ma'isach, and some say the exact opposite. Avana Kadashim. Let's just finish this and we're done. And we'll be where the Hebrew is. Avana Kadashim. This is a riot to Rami Bachama. Kasha on Ziknei Darim. It says, Avana Kadashim. What's Avana Kadashim? The Korbanos, the Kachim. In Avana Makdishim Loi. It comes to be Miratza for the carbon that's Tameh, but not for the Koyin that's Tameh. My Toma, what kind of Toma are we talking about? Ilim Tuma Sheretz. Mishter B'tzibur. Sheretz is never Motor B'tzibur. Why? Because you wait till that night. Elo Lav Tumas Meis. It's the Tuma of the dead person. Avana Kadashim in. Avay Magdishim Loi, it says Mefurish. Not like the Ziknei Darim. That what? That the Kayin who's Tamei. Avay Magdishim Loi. He can't perform the Avodah. Says Gemara, no. Loi Lam Tumas Sheretz. Same kind of answer we said before. We're not talking about the Tumah Mace. We're talking, and that one, so therefore it's not a Kasha on Ziknei Darim. We're talking about Tumas Sheretz. Nothing to do with Ziknei Darim. Everybody agrees about Tumas Sheretz. He can't perform the Avodah. Why? V'shem Tumah Ba'olam. The Brisa brings this Tumah Hutru B'tzibur business, and that doesn't apply to Sheretz, so it makes more sense that we're talking about a mace. No, we're talking about a Sheretz. The reason why the Brisa brought Tumah Hutru B'tzibur is the concept exists in Tumah. Rabbi Isai, have a Gewaldika Yontif Chalamoyed. Thank you for coming.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.